Quick story time. This is my project car. It's a 1993 Mercury Capri XR2. It was my daily driver and it's come a long way, but it's currently broken and I needed something that was a little more reliable. So about a year ago, I got a 2015 Dodge Dart GT as my daily driver. Drove that for about 6 months until someone T-boned me at an intersection. Totally their fault, by the way. I needed to get a new car, and I really liked the Dart so much that I got another 2015 Dodge Dart. This one is the SXT Rally spec version. It's not quite as nice, but it was cheaper, which is what I needed at the time. But it also came with the lovely feature of curb rash from the previous owner. So in this video, I wanted to kind of document sanding down the curb rash and repainting the wheels. While I repainted the wheels, I decided to change the color, go with black, because I think the dark gray car with the black wheels has a really cool vibe to it. And this isn't so much of a tutorial, it's more of a look at what I did and here's some tips and tricks for what it's actually like from someone who's actually done it. So let's get into it. First step is to get supplies. I went to my local auto parts store. It doesn't matter which one you go to, they all have the same stuff. I got the variety pack of sandpaper. This lasted about one wheel, so if you're gonna do this route, make sure you get 4 packs. Mine didn't have enough, so I had to get a bulk round sanding discs because they come in a pack of 16 and it's like $8, which is pretty cheap. So I just got a bulk pack of 320, 220, and 400. I didn't end up using the 600 grit or anything higher because the paint went on thick enough to cover any scratches, so it came out looking smooth. And then for the paint, I made sure to get the wheel paint. Make sure you know the difference between gloss black and flat black, because when I had to go back to get extra paint, because one can of paint only does one wheel, I had to go back and get enough for the other 3 wheels. I got the satin black when I started the first wheel with the gloss black, so I had to then go back and return and come back with more gloss black, and it was just a whole thing. So after you have all your supplies, you can go ahead and jack up your car. Make sure you use the right jacking points. I started to lift on the pinch weld that runs along the side of the car, and it started to buckle and kind of dent, so it wasn't meant to hold the weight of the car. So make sure you use the jacking points that are usually for like a lift you'd find in a shop, so sort of behind the front tire and in front of the rear tires. You can sort of see it on the edge of the camera, but make sure you're lifting in the right spot. This is a multi-hour process between sanding, painting, waiting for the coats to dry, and then giving it like a long time to dry and set up before putting it back on the car. So I just did one wheel at a time. I let it take all day. I didn't try and do more than one wheel in a day because it's just going to be too much, and I only had one jack, so I could only do one wheel at a time anyway. With sanding, I'd recommend wearing gloves if possible, and probably a mask because there's just so much dust and it gets everywhere. Start off with the roughest grit, 180, and then move up 220, and then eventually up to 400. Take your time on the curb rash because you have to sand down a lot of material. You're not just scuffing the surface so the paint will stick to it. You actually have to remove all the scratches and dents and dings in the surface of the wheel. I didn't bother going with any kind of filler material like Bondo or fiberglass reinforced Bondo because these are just the stock wheels. I don't care that much if they're not absolutely perfect show quality, but from 5-10 feet away they look awesome, and that's all I really care about. So just sanding and painting was good enough for what I wanted. You can do it with the tires on, you don't need to take them off or anything. I started sanding and just going around the wheel weights on the inside, but then I just decided to take them off and start from scratch because there were so many wheel weights all over the place. I figured I would just sand everything off, get the whole wheel one color, and then get the wheels rebalanced later. At the time of recording this, I did go and get the wheels rebalanced, and it cost me about $21 per tire for them to take the wheel off the car, balance it, put all the weights on, and then put it back on the car. So keep that in mind, because it was vibrating pretty bad before I got the wheels balanced. So anything over 55 miles an hour, the whole car was shaking around. So your wheels do need to be balanced. It is important, so don't skip out on that. Another thing is when you are taking the tire off of the workbench, don't drop it onto the ground and bounce it like a basketball. The tire pressure sensor on the inside will break off and will now rattle around inside your tire. Ask me how I know that. So that was another $60 to replace. So don't be too rough. If you have a modern car, the sensor might be inside there and it can break off and rattle around inside. Now that the wheels have been sanded on both sides up to 400 grit, you have to clean the wheels from all the dust and then from any grease or finger oils or liquids that were on the wheel, so the paint will stick to it. So I'm just using a mixture of Simple Green and water, and then at the end I'll do a final wipe down with rubbing alcohol and just make sure I use a clean paper towel. I had some adhesion issues on the first wheel, so I made sure on the other three to do a really good job cleaning, because just a little bit of moisture or grease or other contaminants can really mess with the paint and then cause a whole headache and a bunch of other issues. Once it's clean, you can go ahead and mask. It's okay if it's not 100% perfect. We're painting black. The rubber tires are also black, so if it's not an exact perfect match, it doesn't matter because it's black on black. So you just don't want it to be super obvious that you spray painted the side of your tires. So you should mask a little bit, but don't worry if there's a little bit of a gap between the edge of the rim and where the masking tape starts and a little bit gets on the tire. Next step is to go ahead and paint, finally. So make sure you shake the rattle can good. Make sure you read the instructions on the back. For this brand, it said about 10 minutes in between coats. So I did one light coat, waited for 10 minutes, a second light coat, waited for another 10 minutes, and then a heavy third coat. And then after this, I waited about 3 hours for it to cure enough that I could touch it. For the center caps, I just painted them with two medium to heavy coats, let it dry, and then took a red paint marker that I got from Walmart and just kind of drew over the top of the letters to make it have the red text over the black background so it matched the wheel. I had some issues where there was some contamination and it was having sort of like a spider web texture where the paint was reacting with something that had settled on the surface. So for this first wheel, I ended up having to wait overnight for it to dry. Tried to sand it down and it was a little too gummy, so I had to wait overnight. Sanded the area down and just repainted the wheel a second time, and it came out great the second time. It's not perfect. You can still see some scratches if you get up real close, but like I said earlier, it looks great from 5-10 feet away. So unless you're specifically looking for dents and imperfections, or if you're kind of bending down, getting real up close and personal with that wheel, you can't really see any of the curb rash left over. Here we got the old wheel and the new wheel. I repeated the same process on the other three wheels, and this is the final result. I'm super happy with how it turned out. It didn't cost a lot of money, definitely not as much as buying a new set of wheels. It just took a lot of time and patience, doing this over 4 weekends to give myself plenty of time. If you thought the video was cool, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down, whatever. If you have questions, feel free to leave a comment. And if you want to see more videos in the future on my project car or on my daily driver, feel free to subscribe. Just stay tuned for future videos, and thanks for watching.